Obviously back to work, got a good SEC road test for us this week, and it'll be good to come off a disappointing result. We've refocused, and again, in the world of college football in general, you just don't have time to let one game linger into the next. So we turned the page on the Texas game on Sunday and shifted our attention to Auburn. This is a good team that we're going to go play against in all three phases. They've had some pretty impressive numbers in the run game offensively. I think they've really settled into an identity there and have been able to control the game, kind of much like we look to do. And so this is another one where possessions will be precious. They also have the ability to be up tempo. They use that in situations where they get you on your heels, and they can score quick with a lot of skill on the perimeter. So this is a team that has a lot of weapons offensively. Again, I think they found an identity around the run game, and they will pose challenges that way. Defensively, they're fast, they're physical, they cover you up. They're not, their forced incompletion rate is among the best in the country. It's a group that plays with an identity, plays with an edge, and so space will be hard to come by. We got to create it. They use the same physical, fast approach in teams, and so it's a very skilled program that we're playing against. We'll be up against it again as we adapt our strategies to hopefully be at our best against Auburn. It really comes down to how we play. It's not who we play, not where we play. It's how we play. And that's the message I had for the team on Sunday. So we're going to need to focus on Vanderbilt football and bring our identity down. It'll be an early kick. I think the drive from the hotel is about an hour to the stadium, so it'll be an early morning for us. Of course, we're used to that as a morning operation, but we can't sit back and let the game come to us. We need to have the right mindset as we take the field, and that's been the messaging this week. So far, we've had a good week prep. Obviously, like every team, we're banged up, but on the whole, we have guys available for Saturday, and we'll get every bit of training we can out of the week and put the best team we have on the field against Auburn. So happy to answer questions.
How do you guys do a better job of containing Jarquez Hunter than last season when he went for 180?
Yeah. Well, they had two huge runs that were just brutal, and part of that was leverage in the defense. The structure of the defense kind of being chasing leverage down in the snap. And part of that is he's a really good player, and he's going to run through tackles. And if you don't have your body in the contact, again, he's going to bounce off you, and he's got the ability to accelerate. So how will we do a better job? Obviously, that's been a huge focus in our early preparation, both in how we talk about it, but also how we practice it. We need to be a better tackling team than we were on Saturday. And hopefully, we put in place structures that help us leverage the ball in a way that keeps it from running away from us. I think, looking in the Kentucky game for them late when they iced it, or really put it away, I saw a lot of zero coverage for Kentucky, and a lot of times like penetrating defensive linemen get pushed past the ball and open up vertical cuts that, again, he knows how to hit the accelerator and run past you. So we have to be a layered defense. We have to vice the ball. We have to play square and physically at the line of scrimmage. Those seams need to be tightened early in the down. We can't just run up the field and go one for one on blocks. We have to snatch all blocks and finish on the ball. The other impressive part of his running style is he is physical. So you see him at Georgia, running through tackles on the perimeter, again, for touchdowns. And that's true, every game this year. He's just a physical runner. He runs behind his pads really well. He keeps his balance. Reminds me a lot of Ray Davis that way. Just has a knack for patience in a cut and the ability to accelerate. So we can't emphasize body contact enough in our tackling, and that'll be how we train it this week as well.
Have you,
I watched that film in December, or I guess November last year, when after the game. I haven't seen anything recently. He obviously, that team, New Mexico State, a year ago, did a great job going in and winning a tough game on the road, and certainly just like he's been here. I mean, was an integral part of that. That probably was one of my favorite. Before I knew Diego, when I saw him, he threw an interception early, and I suplexed the linebacker on the sideline. That was a play that always stood out to me with respect to the toughness of the team that I was watching. But come to know Diego, that's just a part of his personality. So we haven't spent any time on that, nor will we. This is a new year, obviously a new team, and a new challenge at Auburn. This is an improved team at Auburn too. And I've talked to the team a bunch about how good I think that Auburn is. It's a really talented group.
Texas held you guys down. More out of what did you want to do offensively? Was that just maybe they had more talent than anybody played, and athletes made the difference, or were there things that they did you guys schematically that nobody done?
Are you talking specifically their defense?
Yes.
Yeah. Again, they did some nice things schematically. Obviously, that's a really talented front, and we think we're a talented front too. But at the end of the day, as we watched the film, there were times where we felt like our pad level was high, our technique slipped, and the game got a little big and fast for us. And so there's a lot to be coached within that for us to improve. I do think you've got to give credit to them for both schematically challenging us, but also athletically and physically challenging us. And I mean, look, that's life in the SEC. Sometimes, they're going to be gritty yards, and what you hope is that you maintain the possession and can stay ahead of the sticks. And it doesn't always have to be pretty, but that through possessing the ball, those gritty yards become a little bit easier to come by as the game extends and you wear an opponent out, and we just weren't able to do that. And so the biggest flaws in our performance offensively came down to the turnovers, and certainly some of the 3 and outs where we ended up giving their offense a short field. Those were the things we focused on strategically. Some things fundamentally, technically, we need to clean up, and certainly a credit to Texas because it's a good front.
Brandon Fontenette off the edge was sent on several blitzes, I don't know how many times, and affected the quarterback, got some tips, forced some turnovers. Obviously, is that a Texas matchup thing? Is that something you guys like to do more often with Fontenette? Is that something you guys saw and maybe will continue to utilize?
Really has more to do with him than who we're playing. He's proven himself to be a guy that can tip the field for us. He plays with an intensity about him that honestly similar to Diego, that really sets a tone for us. And so activating him into the play is a great way for us to jumpstart a stop. And we have to find creative ways to do that. But certainly that's a part of our formula and what we want to do to be successful. And he's made impact on game this year, both as a rusher and as a coverage player. He's a good football player.
There's a quote from Hugh Freeze from a couple weeks ago where he's complimenting you at Mizzou, Kentucky, but he said that they have lesser rosters than Auburn. Is your team aware of that?
I would imagine they are. If it's out in the universe, I tend to be the last one, to know about anything, and that's okay too. We don't spend a lot of time on that stuff just because it really doesn't matter. And again, I love our team. I think that this team is growing and evolving forward, and we've shown that we have everything we need to be successful, and that's what we want to focus on. Again, it's like I said, it's not who we play or where we play, it's how we play. And the more that we look at that as a motivation for finding our highest level, that's where we put our focus.
You like to target athletes that played multiple sports in high school.
I think there's a lot. Skill development. Football's not always a great skill development game. And it's also a game that you play. I was talking to a player last week about this. I mean, if you have 10 games a season, over the course of 4 years, you play 40 games. And that's not a lot of exposure in high school. And, in basketball, you're going to play hundreds of games. In baseball, you're going to play a bunch. So what does the multi-sport athlete bring to the table? A better spatial awareness. There's teammate components to it and interconnectedness. I think, again, fundamental technical skill, playing defense in basketball, the footwork, the body position, again, playing between my man and the basket, or playing, passing lane defense. I really am getting out of my comfort zone right now, but I'm doing the best. All I can remember about defensive basketball was like mass stance in the middle of the court. It's basically like a wall sit for 5 minutes, but there's a lot of that. I think that it's crossover, and I think it's a great way to train those skills, and to do it in a team setting. Basketball, lacrosse, baseball, track and field is better to me than running around cones in the off season. Like any sport journey, I mean, there's always suffering and sacrifice involved. So when you learn to do that, I do remember the hardest day of the year when I was in high school. It's probably the only reason I played 2 years of basketball was when you finish football season, you transition to basketball practice. And that might have been Ricky Bowers. That might be unique to my experience, but I never hurt so bad as when you go from end of the season football to the running it takes to play on the basketball court. So all those things factor in. Hand-eye coordination, spatial awareness, again, fundamental technical skills, I think, that are better acquired playing another sport than again, in a gym training somewhere on your own.
Did you pursue an explanation on the Quincy Skinner call, and if so, what did you get?
Yeah, I let me start by saying just what a hard job officiating is, and how much respect I have for those guys. And Baby Jack said to me, actually before the game on Saturday, Dad, do you think you can go a game without yelling at the officials? And obviously I fell well short of that. But I'm still frustrated with it, Chris. I still think that I think in some ways we're setting up probably over involvement of officiating in a game. And I don't think anyone wants that. I mean, when we talk to officials, I mean, those guys, I think the less they feel heard from, the better. I would agree. It's a player's game. I feel that way as a coach. Sometimes my best practice is to get out of the way and let the guys play. So the explanation I got is that there's an effort to crack down on deception plays. I get the sense that there are a lot of complaints that are lodged around different ways that teams use the sideline to deceive the opponent. My response to that was, well, it's about the 11 players on the field focusing on the other 11 players on the field. There should never be a concern about sideline deception. At least, that's never something that I've complained about. But within that when he turned his shoulders to the sideline, it was an act of deception, and that was what led to the flag. And sometimes when you get a holding call on the backside of a play, of course, we ran a jet sweep that went to the other side. And sometimes in those instances on a normal infraction, they won't throw the flag because it doesn't impact the actual play. But in these deception plays, they're very much more technical about how they call it. So, I think the other thing I would say, just in terms of my frustration, is, we ran that formation against Kentucky, and it was the same. It was the same play, just we ran a sneak rather than hand the ball off. And what I'm looking for is feedback, because my job's to coach the team to really play within the rules and to make sure that we don't get flags in that situation. But not getting feedback on that set, led to us running it again. And to have it flagged in that moment, I thought was just, it was a critical moment in the game, especially as we were able to battle back late. And it just feels like that's not the spirit of what we're trying to get done. But those things we can debate in the off season. I appreciated the fact that John took the time to have the conversation with me and listen to me and hear me out and hear my frustration. And like I said to start, I respect them and the job they do, and certainly understand that we're not always going to see eye to eye, but I appreciate the feedback, and we'll be better for it.
If the objection is deception, I mean, do you draw the line and you can't show blitz and back out of it? Can you not take it down to the snap count? I mean, there's a million places you can go. Is that validation that what you guys are doing is causing people problems, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, that would be kind of my response in those moments, where once you start to create all these layers, we've seen this happen with defensive delay game penalty this year, and that's another example of one, right? So, people will find an advantage wherever they can, and one thing that's really smart is to teach your defensive players to clap if it's a clap cadence. And so you saw this happening, and so it was, we came together as a game and said, we shouldn't allow for that to happen. You shouldn't be able to simulate the cadence. And so, the other thing that clapping is a great mechanism for is when you're in a loud environment, it's a way to get somebody's attention. So it's the balance between, are they clapping out of deception, or are they clapping to get attention? Well, it's hard to judge that in the moment. And so they flag it. If a defensive player claps, it's going to be flagged independent of whether or not the offense jumps off sides. And that, I have a problem with that, because, again, to me it should be when the game stops because of this infraction, there should be a flag, and the offense shouldn't be penalized for that. But we're officiating it very technically because we're trying to eliminate it from the game. So it leads to me having to have conversations about not clapping to communicate on the sideline, that kind of stuff. In the same sense, I mean, we got in the Alcorn State game, we got like 2 or 3 false starts in a row in that game off stem calls, from our defense, and I got feedback after that game that we were being a little too demonstrative with how our body was moving and not to get too close to the line of scrimmage. So there's just a lot of layers that are being created here. Some of it I understand, some of it I think is, just we're getting away from, just let's play the game and not get too caught up in it.
How often do you get a tip off that, hey, something you're doing is a point of emphasis, or do you find out after the fact?
Well, and again, Chris, that's a lot of the frustration I had, both in the moment and afterwards, is not that the flag was thrown, because if that's what they're emphasized to see, then they're doing their job. It's usually the feedback is immediate, and sometimes even in game. Even with the defensive delay game, I've had officials come up to me and say, "Hey, you need to watch number whatever because he clapped on that snap, and the next time it happens, I'm gonna have to flag it." Like that feedback to me keeps the game going, and it is helpful, and it helps me coach the team. Again, the goal for us is to not have a bunch of flags in a game, and the goal for the officials is the same. And so it's really great collaboration. We meet with those guys before every game, and generally speaking, they will, if there's something that's come up or something they're emphasizing, they'll sometimes even send the film to us ahead of time. And again, that's my biggest push, is that let's continue to collaborate, and if there's something that's coming up that's repeated on Friday morning, we have a meeting in here with our team that goes through situational football from games from the prior week. So just different situations that come up that we need to cover, and some officiating situations that come up too. Whether that's looking at a hit of ours that was flagged for targeting or not flagged for targeting, or, for example, the horse collar sack against Kentucky. We looked at that one and talked about how we can better execute in that moment. Last week there was a same situation came up in the Nebraska Indiana game. I think it was the week prior, and I think it was a Nebraska defender had the same kind of nameplate in his hand. He released it and made the sack, and so those are great opportunities for us to teach and hopefully clean up and eliminate and create understanding. That didn't happen in this case, and that was really my biggest frustration.
The computer rankings seems, whether it's EPA or SP Plus, whatever else, seems to have you guys ranked lower than you would expect for a 5-3 SEC team. Do you think your strategy and style of play, in terms of you're happy with the 4-yard run a lot of times, do you think that throws off these computer rankings at all?
It could. I think some of the when you look at, I don't know specifically, Robbie, so to go too far into this would be me kind of out of my lane, but our style of play certainly might cut against some of the analytical measures, whether it's, obviously, we've done a nice job protecting the ball and forcing turnovers. The turnover margins win. That would account for that, I would imagine, but maybe yards per play is a little down, and so that shows a bit more methodical approach. Maybe we've been a little more successful on third down than they would expect from any team, and so that helps our record. But we believe in our formula, and we haven't been a great third down team on defense, and that's certainly hurt us at times. But we've also found other ways to build the stops, and at times played well in the red zone. So again, some of the measures don't account for maybe some of the kind of psychological responses that we've hardwired into our team, and otherwise that'll be an interesting study in off season.
Is Auburn another under 10 possession type game, or do you look at that maybe it's slightly differently than the last several weeks?
Well, I think that it might happen organically. It's kind of like one of those where just with the way they're playing around their run game right now, and how they slowed themselves down a little bit, it may be one of those kind of game control on both sides. I think that this game comes down to the explosive play battle in some ways, because it's going to be how we generate some chunks and get points. There's really interesting numbers kind of underlying in this game with respect to the number of points that you need to get above to position yourself winning, the number of points you need to hold them underneath. Rushing yards becomes a big measure in that too. Obviously turnovers are huge. So all these things kind of fit within our normal personality, but I think we're going into this game thinking possession of the ball is going to be precious, because both teams are going to try to maintain and win the time of possession battle. And so, how do we cap their shots and not let them get chunks? And how do we stop a physical running attack and build the stops so that we can get the ball back and maybe create a couple extra possessions for our offense?
You said the numbers were interesting. Do you have some kind of analytical model that spits out to you, okay, and this game this week this is key, and then next week is something totally different, or how does that work?
Yeah, so every week, part of our process is a plan to win, and that's our expectation every week. And so that plan shifts based off the strengths of the opponent and the weaknesses of the opponent too. And so every week we'll start as a team with the big three, and that's three things that we want to do, or we need the three marks we need to hit to feel like we best neutralize the strengths of the opponent and maybe best emphasize the strengths that we have in the matchup. And then that'll bleed into three keys in all three phases. And so, again, the numbers that jump out to me with Auburn is really how effectively they're playing in certain areas of their operation in all three phases. So, again, you talk about a defense that the yards per play they're giving up is among the best in the country. The contested incompletions among the best in the country. You can tell that space is hard to come by. They've been really good in the red zone defensively. I mean, these are all things that, you know, we're going to have to create space in the run game. We're going to have to create space on the perimeter. We're going to have to win in the red zone. And so how do we create a focus around those things within our team so that we can go perform at a high level? Like I said, offensively, their yards per play is among the best in the country. They've been explosive, and their explosive running attack is among the best in the country. So you see, as the run game's gotten going, they can win on shots on the perimeter. I mean, they had really capable skill and a quarterback that can get the ball out there. But it seems to me like as their run game's gotten going, you've seen the offense come to life. And that was the story of our game last year. You know, I mean, they were able to split a couple runs that, you know, really ultimately put the distance between us and them. So always studying those things, and it's always interesting to me to see what are the elements of their performance that have allowed them to be successful, and then what are elements of their performance that maybe have held them back, and the same on our end. You know, what are the things we're doing well? How do we keep doing them? What are the things that we need to improve upon? You know, how are we working towards that improvement?
Anything else? Thank you.
Thanks, guys.